Welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to learn about views and URLs. As we have already installed the Django project and application, so from this lecture onwards, we are going to start with the actual practical implementation. So let's get started. Let's open the project in our Visual Studio Code. So I'll be going to desktop and I'll be opening the actual project. So this is inside the virtual environment with name myenv. I'll be opening the actual project and that is my project. So select the folder. Your actual project folder will now be opened. So you can see that we already have installed the application in the previous lecture and we already have installed the project as well. Alright, so let's now run the server. In order to run the server, you need to come to the terminal and write down the command python manage.py run server. So you should be able to see this kind of result. If you see this, that it means that it is now working. Your server is now live. And if you are able to see such kind of warning, then you can ignore it because right now we are not working with migrations. So you can follow this link, that is localhost 8000. By following the link, you will be able to get this web page. So this is the default page that you get in Django after you execute it for the very first time. So now we got our page over here, the default page. So let's now start working in the Django project. Now there are two ways to work in your Django framework. One is that you can start working directly from your project. But in case if your project is supposed to be very complex and requires number of functionalities, then you may create multiple applications inside it. So you can start working with your application. So in our lectures, we'll be working upon the application. That is, we'll start with the My App. Inside the My App, you can see there is an already existing file called views.py. What is the purpose of this file? This is the file where you define the logic for handling the HTTP requests. So means that any kind of data that you want to show or calculate or process, all that logic will be here inside this file. So we can create the logic either in the form of a function or in the form of class. Now if we talk about views in context of MVT, views in MVT is having the same functionality as that of controller in MVC. We will now try to display a very simple string. Let's say we want to display hello world. So in order to display hello world as a string, we need to import HTTP response class from Django.http. We will import HTTP response. So we have imported the HTTP response. Now we can start writing the logic. But how to write down the logic? As discussed that we can either define functions or classes. So normally we create functions in views.py. We'll be creating a function, as we know that in Python we need to write def keyword and then we need to write down the name of the function. Let's say the name of the function is hello and I'll be passing a parameter called as request and we need to return HTTP response. Within this, let's write hello world. The request parameter here is nothing but the request made by the user, an HTTP request made by the user. So the point is that we are not going to use this, but you can't leave it empty because it's a mandatory parameter. Now since our logic is ready, so we can start working on the URLs. For this, you will have to create a new file called urls.py inside my app, and you need to import a class from Django.urls module. You need to import a class whose name is path. And after this, you have to create a list with the name URL patterns. You need to create a list. Within this list, we are going to define all the paths. So the path accepts two mandatory parameters. The first parameter is the URL itself. Let's say we want the user to go to hello. and which corresponding function should work for this specific path. We have to mention that function here as the second parameter. So we have to import this from views.py file. So that is why we are writing views dot and then the name of the function. So once again, let's check the name of the function. That's hello. So we need to write here hello. And let's check. So right now we need to again run the server. Let's check out. So right, as you can see that the server is now running, and let's check out if we go to /hello whether this works for us or not. So what it is saying that it is not able to find this hello URL. Now the reason for this is because inside the application we have definitely defined the URL, but we have not mentioned the same inside the project. So for this you will have to open the urls.py file of my project, and you have to specify inside the URL patterns, and here you need to mention the empty URL. The second parameter has to include your application. You have not specified your application, the URLs of your application here. So I'll be writing myapp.urls. So what is the purpose of include? Include will start using the URLs from the myapp. So let's say you have one more application with the name myapp1, so you can add one more path over here and write include myapp1.urls. Include is as an external module, so for that you have to import it from the django.urls module only. You have to write here import path comma include and then save the file. Now let's check once again by going to the terminal. You can see that you're able to see an error that name views is not defined. So what we have to do in this case, open the urls.py of my app, and you also need to import from dot import views. Dot means that we are in the same directory, and you will now be able to import this file. So if you simply write here views dot the name of the function, it is not able to find out this views file. You have to import it first. Now let's check the browser. First of all, let's check the terminal. There is no error. So let's check the browser now. On the browser, again, I'll go to this URL and I'll just zoom in. You can see that we are able to get this result. So our program is now showing the result successfully. Now let's try to modify the things a little. Let's create one more function with the name home, and let's pass the request parameter. So whenever you hit enter, you will observe that always you see an indentation, which is the default behavior of Python. So you need to write now return HTTP response. So you must be aware regarding this that whatever the tag, any HTML tag, if you specify within the HTTP response will work as such. Let's say if I write welcome to home page. So if you write here welcome to home page, and let's close this tag as well. So this will be rendered as such. In order to see the result, we will also have to specify the URL, and let's come to the URL. Put a comma over here, write on the comma and write on path and specify. Let's say I want that the user must go to home URL, and what is the corresponding function that we want to work with, and that is home function. So let's check this out in the browser, and here we have to write localhost 8000/home, and you can see you're able to get this page, you're able to get this result, welcome to home page, and it has been rendered as the heading, that is h1 tag. In the same way, you can apply style also. Style, let's say if I write equals to, I'll be using single inverted quotes now, and I have to write, let's say I'm writing color. Color, I want that it should be red. Now when you check the page, the color will now become red. But actually, this is not the recommended way to write complex HTML. For showing complex HTML, we use templates. So as of now, we are not using template. Now in this, let's discuss one more thing. Let's say that the HTTP response that you are having is a multi-line. Let's say if I am writing it this way. In my code, I am showing it as a multi-line. When you check the terminal, it will show you an error, syntax error, unterminated string literal. So Python actually doesn't allow this way. But if you want to work this way, then you will have to write triple inverted quotes instead of just one inverted quote. And now when you check the result in the terminal, it is no more giving an error. And you can also now check the browser and refresh it. You will see the same result. Now let's check how we can work with variables. Let's say you already have a variable inside a function and you want to fetch the value of that onto the browser. So for this, let's create one function. I'll be creating a function with name menu item, and let's pass the mandatory parameter, that is request. We are going to define, let's say, item whose value is cake, and return the HTTP response. We want to display the result, the item available, or let's say I'll write the name of the item is, so we can concatenate this variable item. Right, now we also have to define the URL. Let's copy this function first of all, and now we can go to urls.py file and specify the path. Let's say the path that I need is dish, and let's mention what corresponding function we want to run, and that is menu item. Let's check the result. So if you go to this link, you will be able to see the name of the item is cake. So this is how the result is visible to us. The value of the variable item is being fetched here. Now let's check out one more thing. You can see that the string as well as the variable are being written separately. In Python, there is one more way to write down, like if you want to specify the variable within the same string rather than using a concatenation symbol. So let's comment this code and we will write down the same line again. HTTP response, you can use f string in order to format the variables inside the string. So you have to write f, and then you can write the name of the item is, and then you have to use curly braces. Inside the curly braces, you can fetch the value of that specific variable. So what we have to do, instead of using the concatenation symbol again and again, it's much better that you use the f string in order to format the variable within the already existing string. Now let's check the result of this. If you reload, you will be able to see the same result. There is no difference. Let's now create another function where we will be specifying a dictionary. So let's create a function as menu items, and let's pass the request mandatory parameter. And the name of the dictionary that I want is items. So the dictionary in Python is in the form of curly braces. So I already have the data, so I'll be just pasting the data over here, and that is in the form of key and value pairs. So you can see we have three items, that is pizza, burger, and noodles. Now we have to fetch the value, the complete data on the browser. In order to fetch the complete data, we have to use loop. So let's say, first of all, we need to display a heading. For displaying the heading, I'll be using the h1 tag. For displaying the h1 tag, let's say we are using a simple variable and we will store that heading h1 tag within this variable. So let's write here menu items. So this is menu items, right? Now we have to iterate over this dictionary. In order to iterate over the dictionary, we need to use for loop. So we need the key and value pairs. We need to access the key and value pairs from this dictionary. So the first thing that I'll define will be the actual item, that is the key. And second thing that I'll mention here is the description, that is the value. So for item comma description in, I have to write down the name of that dictionary, that is items, and then dot, and then we have to write down the name of the function. The name of the function will be with the same name as that of dictionary. So what exactly it means, that we are now trying to loop over this dictionary named items with the function items, right? Now after this, inside this loop, we need to display all this in the form of, you can say in the form of an HTML list. So we already started writing some HTML content here. So what we are going to do, we are going to add the HTML content in the same variable. Let's write here, we need an indentation also. Yes, content plus equals to, now what it means, that we are simply concatenating the result to the same HTML. Let's put an f string, and within this f string we'll be specifying an HTML list. Now within this HTML list, we need to display the result as key and value pair. So let's use curly braces, and right here we can access the key, that is item, from here, and we will now access the description also by putting a colon and access the description, right? And now after this, we have to return, we need to return the HTTP response, return HTTP response as the content. Okay, now let's come to the urls.py file, and we will now specify the path. Let's say the path that we want is dishes, and we will use menu items. Let's check the result, and we will write here dishes instead of dish. Okay, so it's saying that can't reach the page. So let's check out the result. There is some mistake over here, expected and right. So the mistake was that we did not use colon here. So it was supposed to be there. Let's check the result once again. And yes, you can see that the result is now being displayed without any kind of error. So hope after this lecture you will be confident in working with views and URLs. In the next lecture, we'll talk about mapping of parameters with the URLs.